So when I started skating, all that there were raised heel boots, and this is what I mean. So this rollerblade TRS, which is unfortunately the cuff died a couple years ago, but this was one of the original, I guess you could call it aggressive skates. So it's a rollerblade skate. It's made by Rollerblade, the company. This is probably, I don't know, 1993, maybe 94. But it's a raised heel boot. So you can see that the bottom of the frame is higher in the back. Let me get this lace out of the way. So the frame's higher in the back. This is the way that all skates were for many, many, many years. This skate is like the classic skate. This is what Chris Edwards and Arlo and Brooke and Michael Palak and all of those guys were skating back in the days. I had a pair of these skates. I absolutely loved them. I mean, I didn't know any better. Looking back, they're pretty limited. Yeah, so this is the Lightning TRS. This is the first skate that was maybe not designed for us. Some would say that the Tarmac was probably the first skate designed for us, but this was the one that aggressive skaters used to skate. And it's a raised heel. So that's the point. You can see that the frame is not flat. The frame is a higher heel than it has in the front. So raised heel boot. This boot actually is still kind of in use. So if you take a look, this is the Valo V13, the Alex Broskow Midnight Skate. If you look at this, if you took off this sole plate, it would be the same basic concept. So it's a similar, it might even be the same mold. I think it is the same mold. So this is, 20 years apart, I guess? This being the TRS, and then this being the Valo V13 that I bought, just a few months ago. The difference is that the frame is now flat. So the Valo has this sole plate that screws onto the bottom, creating a flat sole. So back in the days when you were doing sole grinds, you would actually lean back. So the sole was this little fin. I mean, you could see how small this fin is. But that was a sole grind. So you would have a piece of wood over here. So you would do a sole grind, and instead of being flat like the wheels, like it is now, you would bend down and like this. So the angle, without hitting myself in the head, so the angle was like this, and that's how we learned how to sole grind. And that's not very stable. CDS Detroit, which was a company back in the days, came out with a heel plate, which was just a little 90 degree angle that screwed into the side of this, making this a flat sole. And it was really groundbreaking. I mean, people could lock on soles better. You would just, you would do an actual sole grind instead of this leaning thing. And that's probably what started enabling alley-oop tricks. It was so much easier because you wouldn't have this crazy lean when you're doing alley-oop soles because you had that heel back there. So this Valo recreates that. So this sole, I didn't take it off. I probably should have. But this sole recreates that lift, making a flat sole. And the reason is that UFS frames are flat. Where's my UFS frame? Here's an older. Oh, here we go. There's a fairly newer one. So this is a UFS frame. So the frame is completely flat. Compared to the old frames, like the Lightning TRS, you can see it's a raised back there, and the UFS frame are completely flat. So that is a raised heel boot. they raise the heel because the boot is raised, and then the frame is flat. Then, so after the TRS, there was a new skate that came out that had a more flat ride to it. So this is the K2 Fatty Pro. This came out in probably 1996. Somebody's going to correct me, maybe in the chat. 1996 or so. And this was absolutely groundbreaking for aggressive inline skating. I mean, look at this skate compared to this skate. So, you know, at the time this came out, people with rollerblade was still shipping skates like this. They had the Tarmac CE, which, you know, came with a grind plate, but it was basically this. I think it had a 45-degree strap. Look at this crazy thing. So this is, it has a 45-degree strap. It's a soft boot, but then it's a hard boot on the bottom. So the shell and the cuff are hard, and the frame, you can see the frame, it's flat. How incredible. So K2 was way ahead of their time. What was crazy about these K2 Fatty Pros, or the K2 Fatty for that matter, is that it was a completely flat ride. So you can kind of see inside the skate, there's no heel raise. You know, you'll get a very minor heel raise in there. The boot was almost completely flat. So when you put a liner in there, you know, a little footbed, it felt like, compared to those skates, it felt like you were falling backwards. And there's this thing called the K2 lean. So if somebody is skating K2s, you get that feel where, you know, you're just leaning back, like you're just walking barefoot. It's not crazy. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but that was very different than any other skate that was out there at the time. So this was probably the first flat skate. I'm sure that somebody can correct me, but I can't think of another aggressive skate that was a flat skate until Salomon came around. So these are not the original Salomons. I don't have the original ST8s or the ST9s, but these are the birth of modern birth of modern flat heel skates. This is the Salomon STI. This is the Billy Prislin one, I think. It's a little soft boot up top. It's got a hard shell. It is an incredible skate. This comes with a UFS frame. The original Salomon came with a flat frame. So if you look at the bottom, this frame and these sole plates were all attached. So it was a single piece frame that included the sole plates and the frame. And it screwed in with these existing screws. Now what's crazy about this Salomon is because the bottom of the boot is flat, they needed to compensate somehow to make you get a forward lean. They didn't want you to feel like you were falling backwards, you know. So rollerblades, ice skates, they all had a slightly raised heel. Maybe 10 millimeters, not crazy, but enough so that you felt like you were comfortable, you know. If you're wearing shoes, your heels are a little higher than your toes. That's just the way that most shoes feel. That's the way that you feel. These skates, so take out the liner. Oops, I think I can take out the liner. Take out the liner. It had this little plastic thing in there. And then it has this disintegrated, because I've never taken it out, this disintegrated, I'm not going to take it out because I don't think I can, shock absorber. So the heel of the Salomon was raised with material. So it was this squishy, soft shock absorption in the back. And that was a game changer. You know, you didn't have, like we had shock absorbers in the past, but it always created even more of a forward lean, which sucked. With this Salomon, the shock absorber was built in. So the forward lean came from the shock absorber. So you could skate just a normal liner, and you'd have this really great shock absorption in your heels. So this is an older version. A newer version of a flat boot. Good example would be like a Razor Shift. So these are the Razors Shift 1. You can see they're completely UFS on the bottom. They have the IFC thing, which enables a quick frame change. You push these two buttons, you can take off the bottom and put it on. This is what the sole plates look like. So these sole plates are completely flat, two little UFS areas, and you put the frame on there, and then you put it on the boot, pop it in. It's a really great system, and it's a flat boot. So take out this liner, and you can see the bottom. This is just a beefy shock absorber, and on the inside it's completely flat. So that's been huge. There are other flat boots out there. The USD Carbon, the Seba CJ, to name a couple. Flat boots are, for me, the way to go. I love skating a flat boot with a built-in shock absorber. I had a really difficult time skating my the Rollerblade NJ, the New Jack Teams, because they had a shock absorber, but they also are a raised heel boot. What the heck are these? So these, never mind the huge frames, but these might look like a flat, but they're actually a raised heel. And then if you add the insole inside, it makes it even higher. So it felt like I was leaning forward. I love the feeling of a lean back. I don't necessarily want the K2 lean back, but I love the feeling of a slight lean back. And having that as a shock absorber means that it's a much more comfortable ride. So if you didn't know what a raised heel versus a flat heel boot was, I hope that cleared it up. My preference is to get a flat heel boot so that I can manage how high I want that raised heel. I don't want the boot to dictate how high it is. And I also think that the addition of a shock absorber inside the heel makes a lot of sense. You know, don't put plastic back there. Put something that can be a little squishy so that when I do a little gap or a transition, I can feel that cushion when I land. Of course, to each their own. It might not be your style of skating, but for me, I definitely prefer a flat heel boot.